Sorry. You should always move them before you turn the microphone on, because they make horrible noise otherwise. Hello and welcome. I'm Gerald Fenner-Jackson and Chair of the Planning Committee, and this is the Portsmouth City Council Planning Committee being held in the Guildhall. Welcome. Just in terms of housekeeping, if there's a fire alarm, it's real. There's no practice expected, so please do not meet the Queen Victoria because the ice rink's being built, but outside the Park building on King Henry Street, the other big stone building. This meeting is live streamed, so everybody can see it, and everybody speaking on camera, on the microphone will be on the camera. People can record this if they so wish. Colleagues, if we're voting, can we please do it in a very obvious way so that we get it right. In terms of how we go, for each application we'll go through the officer's presentation first, then people who've come to speak on this, what we call here deputations, have 12 minutes in favour, 12 minutes against. Then there are members' questions, and that's from the councillors who are members of the planning committee. And then we then go second bit where the councillors comment and come up with proposals and a decision. Once deputations are finished, then the people involved in the discussion are just members of the planning committee. And as I'm sure everybody knows, we have to operate within the rules set down for us by government and the National Planning Framework. Okay, so let's go through the agenda. First of all, let's just do introductions so everybody knows who everybody is. Shall we start with Judith?
Judith Smythe, St Jude Ward and Vice Chair of this committee.
Thank you. Sure.
Asghar Shah, Councillor for Cosham and Wimmering.
Thank you.
Councillor Hugh Mason, St Jude Ward.
Councillor Peter Candlish, Eastern Craneswater Ward.
Councillor Richard Adair, Councillor for Nelson Ward.
Good morning, Matthew Cordy, Councillor for Helsing.
Good morning, Councillor Derek North, Cosham and Wimmering.
Thank you. So let's go around. Juliet.
Good morning, I'm Juliet Gill, I'm the Principal Planning Solicitor.
Okay, so we'll go to our colleagues over the way.
Simon Turner, I'm a planning team leader.
Lorna Juarez, Principal Planning Officer.
David Hodges, Head of Development Management.
Lovely. And from Democratic Services?
Lisa Gallagher, Democratic Services.
Thank you. Then we're joined by various people who've come to speak. Councillor Lee Hunt, do you want to introduce yourself?
Good morning, members and everyone. I'm Councillor Lee Hunt, and I'm here to speak on 85 Gladys Avenue, which is situated in Nelson Ward.
Thank you. And then at the back, do you want to just introduce yourselves for the record?
Hello, I'm Barry Good from Welbeck CP, the applicant for the Matalan site.
Thank you.
Edward Flack, Welbeck CP also.
Thank you.
Good morning everyone, John Rowlatt, Union for Planning, agent for the Matalan site.
Yeah, Jonathan Kiesel from CGL Architects, the architect for the Matalan site.
Thank you.
Good morning, Colin McQueston, Head of Development at Coplan Estates, speaking on behalf of the Matalan site.
Thank you.
Carrie-Anne Wells, agent representing 20 Montgomery Road and 85 Gladys Avenue. Sorry.
Lovely. And then...
Good morning. My name is Andrew Payne and I live in Gladys Avenue.
Nice to see Mr. Payne.
Thank you.
Linda Payne, again living in Gladys Avenue.
And Mr. Payne, as I understand it, you're reading out a deputation from a gentleman who can't be here, is that?
Yeah, Mr. Keating, who
That's right.
who lives next to the proposed HMO in
Lovely.
Gladys Avenue.
Thank you very much indeed. And then I think at the back we have colleagues from planning. No, you're not here. You're just a fig tree of our imagination. Excellent. Okay. Thank you very much indeed. Then we've got apologies for absence. I've got apologies from both Mary Valley and Chris Atwell, and I don't think we have anybody subbing for either of those. Okay, we tend to do microphones at every other one because we're trying to be good about COVID, and it just gives us a bit more space. But if you're happy to get COVID from each other, you can sit next door to each other. Okay, colleagues, any interest that colleagues need to declare? Councillor Adair, I see you loitering.
Thank you very much. I'll be absenting myself from the application 85 Gladys Avenue. This is my first time on the planning committee, and prior to this I've spoken extensively to people living in Gladys Avenue, and therefore there's the possibility that it could be seen that I've already reached a view on the application, and to avoid that I will be absenting myself from this one item.
Thank you. Any other apologies for absence? No? Okay, thank you. Colleagues, we got the minutes of the previous meeting on the 23rd of October. My apologies not to be with you then, but I understand that you were ably looked after by Judith. Colleagues, are you happy with those minutes? Great. Lovely. Okay. We only have 4 applications with us today. So this may be a shorter meeting than normal, but let's move on to the Matalan site, or the car park of the Matalan site. I'm very depressed it's not for the whole thing, because the Matalan building is hideous. And it would be nice to see that redeveloped as well, but this is just for the car park area. So, Simon, is this yourself? No?
No, this is mine.
Oh, thank you. Leap in.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. So the application before you is for, as you've mentioned, the Matalan car parking site, and it is for the construction of a 4-storey office building to include a new vehicle access from Station Road, public realm area, enclosed off-street parking and landscaping. So as I'm sure you all know where this site is, it is adjacent to the listed station. Yeah, thank you, Simon. And in front of the site, you've got the old Debenham sites, which will be for redevelopment. To the right of that, you have Slindon Street Post Office, where half of it has been consented for a hotel, and the other half is for a residential scheme. The Matalan site itself is not part of this application, but it is within the applicant's ownership. These are just some photos from within the site. So as you can see, the top photo is showing you the station, building itself, and also the listed canopy. The second photo shows you just more of this listed canopy, which does overhang into the applicant site. The viewpoint here is looking towards the Debenhams building and the Slindon Street Post Office. And the bottom picture is the existing Matalan building, which is vacant. So this is the proposed building and the elevations. So the north elevation, which is along Station Road, to the right of that, you can see the pedestrian access, which is just there. And to the right of that, there is a public open space. To the other side of the building, there is the vehicular access, which leads to the enclosed car park, and there is controlled roller shutters for the access of that. Along that elevation, the ground floor consists of bin stores and just general storage. So there's no offices along the bottom. The upstairs, where the windows are located, that is the offices. The vertical windows are the stairwells, and the bits which are enclosed are the toilet facilities and lifts. So that's that over there. On the top story is where all the plant will be. So the air conditioning units and the air source heat pumps are being located. On the bottom photo, so this is the rear of the building, you can just hopefully make out the wall, the station wall, which runs the length of the site. So this currently is a mesh fence, which is going to be removed and replaced with this wall. And this will be the boundary of the site. So the east elevation, you can see on the left-hand side how it interacts and relates to the canopy. So there is some relief for that. There is no roof being proposed for that car park area. And on the western elevation, again, so this is the main entrance with the double height entrance feature with the glass, and this is where you will enter the building. Pedestrians and people visiting will enter the building. This image here is a CGI image just to show how the building relates with the station canopy, because it is a listed canopy, so it has been designed, the building has been designed with that in mind. Elevations, we've spent quite a lot of time and lots of discussions with the applicant and the agent regarding the materials and the colouring of this building. We have come to what is in front of you today, which is a aluminium vertical fins, which will be at the top and along the bottom, and it is in with brick slips, which will be, and the brick will be used, which will respond to the existing station with the colouring, and with the framework of the building will be dark grey, and all the actual details of the materials are all being conditioned, so we can review the samples and make sure that each one sort of works together and fits with the area and character of this area. This is the ground floor plan. So when to enter the building, you will go through the public square and enter the building. There is the parking available. There is 38 vehicle spaces with 21 of those for disabled users. There is also EV charging points being positioned within. And there's also a large cycle storage area where there will be 6 Sheffield stands, 80 racks and 2 specialist spaces. And there's also a bike repair point, and there's also showers in close proximity to the area. Internally, there are 3 lifts, which will go to all the floors, and there's also a goods lift, which is towards the back of the building. This is one of the upper floors. So they're all, as you can see, they're all open plan, apart from the toilet facilities and the lifts area. It is all open plan. They've also got access to a roof terrace garden, where the workers can go and just spend some time outside. So there's going to be planting and seating area, and also, I believe, an area for dogs. On the roof plant, as mentioned, this is where the plants will be, which will be enclosed from the street scene. There's also a lot of PV panels being proposed, because this building is being designed to bring out outstanding. So they have taken a lot of sustainability and resources into this building. So this is the public square. There will be a mixture of trees and planting and seating along this area for people to use. At the back of it, there are the cycle stands for visitors who are coming to the building. The exact details, the exact planting species will all be conditioned. The reason why there is also a big gap in the middle of it is to do with the emergency services and the turning. So they can come in off the road, the bollards will go down, they'll come in, do whatever they need to, and then they can turn safely within the area, the site, and then go back out. This is mentioned, this is the image of the rooftop garden. As I said, this is for the workers if they just for a break outside. Again, all the planting is conditioned to the exact species. There's also proposed highway works which will be undertaken as part of the development. This will include the relocation of the bus stop. So it's going to be moved slightly further down the road. Same with the bus shelter.
Define down the road, going
So-
east or west?
It's going, yep. So it's currently here, and it's been moved here. So it's going from here to here. And the bus shelter will be going from here and being positioned just here. And this area here will be the lay-by for loading, and also a disabled drop-off and pick-up point. It also allows access, emergency access, if needed, into the site. There's also going to be, the cycle lanes also going to be increased just here. And as part of the works further down, where there is a pinch point with the pavement, that is going to be extended out to increase permeability of walking along the pavement for local people. So I think that's just around here. This is a view, proposed view, CGI view, looking from the footpath bridge so you can see the station, the new building in relation to the existing buildings behind it. And then this will be how it will look from looking from Station Street, looking east. As I said, we have had extensive talks regarding the materials and along the Station Road. When you walk along Station Road, the building itself is not flat. It does have like fins sticking out to make it more interesting when you're walking down the street scene. So it's not just a flat blank elevation. There are bits that sort of push out a bit, which are brick. And then it'll have the vertical fins, which we placed in certain positions, so it looks different every time you walk past it, to make it more interesting while walking on the street scene. And there are no objections to the scheme, and there is one letter of support from the Portsmouth Society. And if I can refer you to the SMAT, there are a number of conditions which have been amended, reworded, or added, which are included in the SMAT. And also, Network Rail did previously object to the scheme, but they have since withdrawn their objection and requested an informative to be added for talks to keep going regarding the access required to maintain the canopy, which is on the applicant side. I think that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much indeed for that. Okay, we have two people wanting to come to speak, Mr. Rowlatt and Mr. McAston. So, who would like to go first? Lovely, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. As said previously, my name is John Rowlatt. I'm a planning consultant with Union for Planning. We've been working with Welbeck CP, the applicant, on this site for a number of years, with pre-application discussions and DRPs, and obviously now culminating in the scheme you see before you today. So we're excited that we've now got to this stage of presenting it and running through the various merits of the proposals. Whilst the benefits of the scheme are set out comprehensively in the committee report that you've all seen and have been presented excellently by your planning officers, I would just like to take the opportunity to reiterate some of the key planning merits of the scheme. I'll then pass over to Colin McQueston to my left, who will highlight the many general benefits of the development. Firstly, from a planning perspective, through delivering employment floor space within the city centre and adjacent to the station, and through the provision of public realm, the scheme delivers on a site allocation which was first identified over 10 years ago and has subsequently been reiterated through a number of planning policy documents, including the City Centre Master Plan, the City Centre Development Strategy, and most recently the Emerging Local Plan, towards which we've made representations. As such, it fully aligns with a long-term council vision for this highly sustainable and accessible site. The scheme has also evolved with full consideration of the existing and emerging development schemes within the vicinity. And just noting your comments earlier on, Chair, also with an eye to the neighbouring site, the Matalan building itself, which will emerge as a sort of phase 2. So it's sort of taken that into consideration to ensure there's no blight of that neighbouring site. Built heritage has also been another major factor for the proposals, with the listed station and the listed canopy in close proximity. While some of the earlier schemes were much higher rise, and we had feedback on that from your conservation and design officers, the scheme presented is much lower rise. It's stepped away from the station to allow that sort of breathing space between the two. And the use of materials, as Lorna touched on, has been sort of evolved to be in keeping with the station itself, using the sort of tones and the brick materials, sort of common within the station building itself. This will ensure the setting of this listed building is enhanced rather than negatively impacted, and obviously will result in the removal of the structures on site that detract from the quality of the listed building at present. The public realm proposed will provide an attractive and usable public space in close proximity to the station and the main shopping area of the city. Together with the new high-quality office building, this will greatly enhance the site and the townscape on the southern side of Station Street, which is much more befitting of this key gateway location within the city centre. Finally, and equally as important, as mentioned previously, that the proposals are fully policy compliant and have the support of the wider community and statutory consultees. Not a single objection has been received for a scheme of this scale and importance. I think we feel that's testament to the quality of the scheme and the positive engagement that we've had with the public and with your officers. So if I pass you, thank you for your time, and I'll pass you over to Colin now.
Chair, members of the committee, thank you. My name is Colin McQueston, Head of Development at Copeland Estates, and we're excited about this opportunity to bring this investment to Portsmouth, and in particular to bring such a sustainable and suitable reuse of the Matalan car park site. I say opportunity because this is really about more than a planning application and a building. It's about delivering regeneration in line with your policies. It's about putting jobs into the city centre, 1,250 of them, where those jobs will support the vitality, vibrancy and success of the city centre and its economy. It's about connecting jobs with transport. It's hard to think of a better connected site than this one, right next door to the railway station and so well linked with public transport connections. And it's about creating confidence in the standard of development you want to see. A BREEAM outstanding building of high architectural merit, which be one of the most environmentally sustainable buildings in the city, if not on the south coast. I hope you'll be as positive as we are about playing a part in delivering all of these here in Portsmouth and making it happen. The fundamentals of this application are well explained in the case officer's report, and if you've taken a moment to review it, in the summary briefing note we have prepared. I don't propose to go over those again. However, I would like to mention 3 things that are important to say and important to know. Firstly, this application comes before you today following more than 3 years of hard work to put together the best possible scheme and the most suitable reuse of this site. It benefits from constructive dialogue with your planning officers, for which we are grateful. And it benefits from really good technical evaluation and refinement. We have an excellent architect and planning team, and we are grateful for the way your officers have engaged so we can bring an outstanding scheme to the table today, and also one with an officer's recommendation for approval. Secondly, I'd like to put on record our appreciation to the public and stakeholders who contributed through our consultation. From local councillors to civic and amenity groups, and from members of the public through to adjacent landowners, including Network Rail, we have had excellent collaboration and the scheme is better for it. Some 83% of respondents supported the principle of developing the site for officers. And thirdly, I'd like to say a word on delivery and what can happen next if you approve this application. We as Copeland Estates and Welbeck CP will invest and move this forward, and will do so quickly. we want to do that. And also because we are committed to delivering the scheme for our occupier, HMRC, so they can move here in 2027. If you approve the application in front of you, we are targeting a start on site of Q2 in 2025. As I say, this is more than a building and a planning application. It is about a significant and exciting opportunity for the city. I hope you will support the officer's recommendation and allow us to make it happen. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Colleagues, questions. I'm going to start with one from me, the council officers. We're always keen to have, or to avoid piecemeal development. Why is there not an overall planning application for the whole of the Matalan site with us, and why are we only doing part of it?
This application is just obviously for the car park itself. I know that the applicant has been looking at different options for the Matalan building itself. I do not know what they are because they're obviously not at a stage when they're available to be made public. But this application on its own can stand alone without the other site coming forward.
Okay.
Chair, I was just going to add, and you'll see in the report, and we're satisfied that the scheme that you've got before you doesn't compromise the ability to redevelop the retail building site coming forward in the future.
Okay, just let's hope English Heritage don't list the Matalan building, as their judgments have been slightly wayward at times. Anyway, any other questions? Colleagues? Councillor Mason.
I have a number of questions. The first one concerns the site itself. Can you confirm that there are no utilities, sewerage, electricity, gas, etc., which are running under the site, which could compromise the building?
I don't believe there are. I know we've had some consultees come back in with obviously no objection to the scheme, but with comments just to make sure, you know, that any works they do, they take into account anything that is nearby. But I don't think there's anything fundamental to stop the building coming forward.
My second question then concerns the building itself. You have shown where there are lifts. Can you show us where there are staircases for egress in case of fire?
So there's a staircase just here, and then there's another one on this side. So this is the location of the lifts, the 3 lifts, and this is the location of the goods lift.
And they are all acceptable for egress in case of fire emergency?
They go the full length of the whole building to be able to get out.
Right. I have a third question, again on the site. We have a car park and there is a canopy. How will the British Rail or Network Rail access the canopy over the car park?
So within the design access statement, there is set out a maintenance how Network Rail can come on site. So it will need to be arranged with the owners of the building, obviously for a suitable time, for them to get access to be able to maintain their canopy. So they will be able to access it. They would just need to make prior arrangements.
Right. Given that there is a wall going to be a wall alongside, they will need to be able to access the whole of the canopy from the
yes, from the applicant side of things. Yes, they will be able to. They will have to access the sites from obviously from under the car park. They'll have to have permissions to go through under the car park to the actual canopy to maintain all of it.
Yep. It was not so much the permission I was concerned about, it was the actual ability to do it. Yeah. So
that-
technically possible.
It is. So, Simon, do you mind just showing one of the images of it? That one. That. The one before it. Wrong way. Go back. That one. So if you have a look at the elevation here, you'll be able to see that there is the gap for the canopy to be maintained itself. So before it was envisioned that there would be an extra sort of roof on top, which was removed during the planning process to be able to get the full access of that canopy for it to be maintained.
Right, okay. It was just that this being so very close that... my last question, at this point anyway, concerns the elevation along Station Street. Quite clearly, there are not windows along the whole of that Station Street front. Where it is, as it were, black on that north elevation, what are the materials there? Because it could look quite overbearing from the street, I think. Black areas within red brickwork. So what's the design there?
So this is a point that we spent a lot of time going over, this exact point for the exact material. Originally, it was proposed to be some sort of mesh, but we didn't feel that was appropriate. So what will be vertical fins. So, and they'll be placed at different intervals. So when you walk along the streets, they will give some sort of pattern in a way. So it won't be just like a blank elevation. There will be some, projection out to make it more interesting. Because as you said, there are no windows along there. But we have worked quite a while to get something that is acceptable to be more interesting walking along Station Street.
Okay, Councillor Candlish and then Councillor Smythe.
Can I, thank you, Chair, because I actually still want to understand, because I'm not sure I've completely understood. So on these vertical fins, they're extending from the road level up how high? 1 story or all the way?
So they will be until the first story of the office buildings. So yes, so it is a big long vertical bit.
From road level to first floor, below the window level is what we're talking about.
Yes.
And then secondly, if I was the comment about walking along the street and seeing them, are you saying that they are at different intervals between the various columns to make it interesting? I didn't quite understand that, if I'm honest.
So they're at different, yes. So instead of being all uniformed in between each panel, each uniform, certain spacing, they're slightly different spacing across, just to make it a bit more irregular and a bit more interesting to look through. They're not all symmetrical. I do have, I don't know. So I do have some additional further materials, just hopefully just an idea of how the metal fins work and with the different types of brick slips, just to try and add a bit more information for you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Smythe.
Sorry, can I just ask to make sure my understanding? So the aluminium's vertical fins are the top picture and what they look like there?
Yes, that's right. So they'll be at the top and at the bottom.
So in my head, I had the mental picture of like the inside of a Coke can aluminium look, but it is clearly very different from that.
Yeah, and as I said, like all the materials, so the actual ones that are used, are all being conditioned to make sure that they all work in uniform with each other. So they'll work with the bricks and with the frame.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Dare, do you think you could find a way of making your phone go quiet? Thank you. Councillor Smythe.
Thank you, Chair. I want to pick up on this surface as well. It would be a great shame if this otherwise pretty good building should be immediately defaced with graffiti or by people who are having a jostle, pushing back the fins in any way. I think this is a shame. I mean, did you think of the option of some public art there, something that really is attractive, something that would be enhance the street rather than merely covering up a wall that, you know, could have been punctuated by windows and looked like much more of a human space? That's my first question.
So we didn't look at public arts on this elevation. We did look at doing something, a possibility, on the roller shuttles, on the shutters for the car park. That was we did look at it, but we didn't take it anywhere forward. But we didn't look at on this actual building, no.
I mean, I'm worried about this site. I think if you're walking down there, you want something that's much more human interest and much less vulnerable to vandalism. You know, it's an inner city site. We do have a fair bit of graffiti. The public don't like graffiti. This is asking for trouble, I think. I think the building otherwise is pretty good. So I'm just putting down a marker that I think that even with the fins, which I must say when you first described them looked like that they might be shiny and catch the light in different ways and be really quite exciting. This isn't exciting. This is sort of industrial looking and backstreet looking. Second question, on page 17 we note of the report, I noted to my horror that I see that Network Rail, looking at that thing, objects to the scheme and they've now withdrawn it. But I also see the extraordinary comment that it say that Network Rail requests contributions to accommodate the additional passengers. When did this come? When did this start coming for Network Rail? Network Rail is a nationally paid service, and it's up to both Network Rail and the train operators to decide that there's the right capacity. I found this comment absolutely extraordinary. Have I missed something that's been going on for years, or is it extraordinary and will it never appear again?
So we did actually meet with Network Rail after we received this to basically explain that, as you said, it is, you know, the fees that will be generated from increased ticket sales should be used to do any improvements that's needed for the station. But there was not, the increase in numbers did not justify any additional funds to accommodate the passengers.
Well, I mean, I always get off at Fratton, but the station, in my view, is not that crowded at the best of times. And I hope we never see Network Rail trying to impose this kind of condition in the future, unless it is quite an evident a development that's sort of evidently tied up together with each other. Like, for example, some of the stations, Reading and Oxford, have done some work that actually involves other users in the capital scheme, and that one can understand negotiations going on. But this is outrageous.
We shouldn't penalise them for trying it on. That we might see through it does mean that they might be tried on a bit better with another scheme.
Can I ask that we find out whether this is national practice? Because I think I was just utterly...
I'm sure David can tell us.
Yes, Chair, I was just going to confirm, if we're going to secure any financial contributions, we need a basis for doing it, and the basis for doing that will be in the local plan. So it would be in effect a decision of the council if that was a priority to do so. So as Lorna's explained, in this instance we don't feel it's justified. They could make a pitch as part of the local plan process. That could be within a suite of contributions that we might consider to do. We're conscious of, in our planning gain contributions, there's a lot of things competing for that uplift and value, that planning gain. So it would have to be adopted by members as a policy first.
But this is a contribution requested from the developer to Network Rail.
But it would have to go through our systems, and David says there's no justification for it within our local plan. Okay, any other questions? Councillor Adair.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I've looked through the 22 pages of this report, and my initial thoughts are it's a wonderful scheme. I think we should thoroughly support it. But just a few little concerns I've got. It says in the report there's going to be 700 to 750 employees, yet there's only 38 parking spaces. So clearly the vast majority of people are going to have to make their own way there. I don't want this to end up like a giant junior school where we've got hundreds of cars pulling in, dropping off people throughout the day. What provisions we made for employees getting to and from work?
So there is a travel plan being submitted, and it does obviously set out the different methods of transport, obviously train and the bus, because they're both on the doorstep. There's obviously the option to cycle into work. But yeah, there is a travel plan that sets everything out.
And Councillor Dare, we know that there are significant numbers of empty spaces all the time at the Creswell Street car park, just around the corner. So I'm very keen to make sure there's adequate car parking. There is a lot of empty car parking in the area available if they want to, and that would mean that NCP would become very happy. Very rich. They are very rich. It would mean they would become richer. Any other questions, Councillor Dare? No. No. Colleagues, any more questions? Councillor Candlish.
I have one actually that relates quite closely to that. There was reference in your. So I understand all the travel options other than cars, but I also know the reality that people will probably use cars, and there will be some informal dropping, whether we like it or not, probably in the area. So you spoke about there being a disabled drop-off spot. Could we see the slide where that shows?
So it is there. Hopefully. Sorry for the shaky finger.
So what is that actually going to be marked as? I don't understand the disabled drop-off. I understand what it is, but I don't understand what it would be, because is it not just a general drop-off point, which I would applaud, because I believe that there will be quite a lot of informal drop-off going on, and I wondered if there is some restriction I don't quite understand about the disabled, only disabled people can use it to drop off. I would ask, is there any consideration, or where might someone informally drop things off? By informally, I also include illegally.
Okay, so I'm just trying to think of the best way to answer that, because I don't, obviously under plans, it's just been shown as for the disabled. It is something, yeah, there is no way just obviously for regular, if it's going to be police or anything.
If I might help, if it is simply that there's a drop-off bay,
yep,
and this is identified as a good place where people with disabilities could drop off to gain access, then that actually helps me. That is what I'm kind of looking for.
Yep, then that's what it is.
I have found what I'm looking for.
Thank you.
And Councillor Candlish, of course, just to point out that you are the decision maker about whether it is a disabled bay or not. So it's entirely in your hands.
But that's why I was seeking clarification in case there was something I had missed, because it's actually not a disabled bay that is being asked for. It is actually a drop-off site,
yeah,
which will be particularly suitable for potentially people with disabilities needing to gain access.
Yeah, as behind it, there is obviously a loading bay where you could, again, drop people off just behind it. So the first bit is marked as the disabled bit, and then the second bit is a loading bay. But as it will be for our highways team, because it is on the highway land. So it would be for them to decide how they're going to mark it up when it comes. But say there is enough space for people to drop people off.
Okay, that's good. And as Chair says, as Cabinet Member for Transport, I will look forward to seeing that work its way through the process. And I might also say that I share Councillor Smiley's view about Network Rail's ask. I might mention that in informal transport discussions with Network Rail.
Okay, colleagues. Any more questions? Nope. Excellent. Let's move to comments then. I'm happy to propose the officer recommendation for approval for this. Councillor Smythe.
I would like to propose that we approve the application. I think it's excellent in many ways, particularly the fact it's a pretty green building, top notch on BREEAM. But I would like to reinforce the condition on the condition that's talking about materials, and ask that the design of that ground floor with the kind of fins on it include consideration of something much more exciting, something much more welcoming, something much less likely to be graffitied or destroyed in some other way, and that would make the road feel safer for passers-by. I think that could be conditioned, and I would propose that we accept the application with a specific. The condition, I think, is already there, but to enhance that condition to include something that is genuinely welcoming, possibly fun, possibly artistic, and will deter destructive behavior, antisocial behaviour, and graffiti. So I would like to propose that,
So
please.
personally, I'm happy with it, the design as it currently is, but it's a condition, and therefore there'll be discussion between the planning officers and the developers. And I understand there's been a great deal of discussion already. David, you're...
Yes, I was just going to add, Chair, that obviously the applicants and the agent are here. They've heard what's been said today. We do have the flexibility to agree those materials as part of the condition. So, yes, we hope that that's been heard, Chair.
I mean, if it can just be, it could be fun.
Absolutely.
I just think that's what city centres are about. They're about fun, they're about colour, they're about art, art, and they're not really, they shouldn't really be just about graffiti.
Okay. Okay, colleagues, and Councillor Cantlish.
I would have put out a similar comment to Councillor Smythe on the fins that, for much of the same reasons. So that's just another voice in the crowd along those lines. I secondly wanted to call out the sustainability of the building and how it's all been built in. And I particularly liked, with my transport hat on, that the bicycle side of it actually started to consider oversized bikes, which I assume means the sort of more modern, larger electronic bikes, which are effectively substitute commuter vehicles for people and very appropriate for urban use, and which I don't think I've seen actually called out in an application that's gone through here before. And the whole thing has been thought through, it feels to me, in that way, because there was also reference to in the presentation to things like showers, which are a key enabler to making some of these things happen. So, yeah, my hat is off, and I like what I am seeing in terms of those things, and I could go on with some others, but I think that's my direction of comment is clear.
Okay, any other comments? Councillor Adair.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've looked at the application, as I said already. I think it's an absolutely marvellous application. Clearly, a great deal of thought and consideration has gone into the planning at all stages. And I don't think I'm going to be shot at dawn for saying that Commercial Road could do with a boost. And now we've got a situation where 750 people are going to be based there. So clearly, Greg's going to be rubbing their hands with glee. I'm sure the other shops will be delighted. So I thoroughly recommend this application.
Okay, Councillor Shaw, were you indicating, or were you just wanting to buy a picture for £1 million when you... No, that's all right, fine. Just be careful where you put your hands. Okay, I don't have anybody else wanting to speak. We have one proposition on the table, which is to go with the officer's recommendation, but with a nudge for them to do some work about the ground floor, the materials being used, and what might be alternatives to what is currently here in the plan. Councillor Candish, are you wanting to do another proposition?
I didn't want to do another proposition.
Excellent. Shall we move?
I hadn't.
No. So I'm cutting you off in your prime.
It wasn't a major comment. It was just one additional comment, which is, as I understand it, there's going to be. It's not in the application, but there is some public knowledge that it might be quite a signature business that is moving into the
I think
place.
the applicant has said who the business is.
Have they now? Okay,
yes.
There was a bit where we were dancing around that. But there's nothing that actually, the building itself is actually quite distinctive, and as I've said, I really, really like it. But there is nothing that, I think there is another space to do something that marks it out as a particular building, and you've got that long vertical panel as well, hiding the toilets on the different floors. I wonder if there's also a public thing that could be done there to just give a bit more landscape to the place. So nothing wrong, it's just a plus.
I think if we want run a public competition about what should be the symbol for the tax office, there may be several suggestions of what might come up.
That certainly was not my suggestion, Chair.
Okay. So, colleagues, we have a proposition on the table. Can I see those in favour of this application, please show, which I think is unanimous. Okay, there's no point asking if anybody else against, because there aren't anybody to be against. So that's planning application is granted unanimously. Thank you very much indeed for that. Okay. Now, you're more than welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but you may not want to, and you're more than welcome to disappear at this point. Thank you. Okay, moving on. We now come to number 85 Gladys Avenue, which in our papers is on page 35. Okay, Simon, is this you?
It is, Chairman. Thank you. We have an application at 85 Gladys Avenue for a change of use from a Class C3 dwelling house to an 8-bed, 8-person house in multiple occupation. The application has come to committee because of the number of objections at 10. And we've had further, I think, repeat objection from a previous objector to the neighbour, and kindly some of the other neighbours have said they should be reading that out, so I shall let them do that shortly. So Gladys Avenue, the north-south road there, running more or less parallel to London Road, up in Nelson Ward. So it's a mid-terrace house, albeit it has a ground floor, one of those tunnels that takes you through to the rear. So it's a tunnel through the ground floor to take you to the shared rear access. This is the property in cream. That's the door that takes you through underneath, through the building, shared door into the rear gardens, rear yards. With respect to the two principal issues that we look at first, the matter of the mixed and balanced community, the 10% threshold guidance. In the 50-metre radius that we've checked all our various records and looked at the various submissions from the neighbours, including the new one today, or the further one, there are 3 HMOs existing within a 50-metre radius, which is the 50-metre distance in the policy, in the guidance, I should say, in the supplementary planning document. Here on the corner of Wadham Road, next door 87, and just further up the road at 93. So with those 3, plus the proposal for the change of use from 85 to an HMO, that would result in 4 HMOs within the 50-metre radius, which would result in 6.15%. So that's below the 10% threshold we look at, and so the community therefore is deemed to still be a mixed and balanced community in accordance with your policy if this application is approved. Moving on to the second principal issue we tend to look at first, ahead of the others, is the internal living conditions proposed. These properties have the main body of the house 2-storey with a single-storey rear wing, and the different properties, of course, have had different elements. These are single-storey at the rear. 3-bedroomed house with an upstairs bathroom as existing. Quite a few changes to accommodate the proposed 7 bedrooms. Each one is en suite, so I'll take you through each one. Bedroom 6 at the front here with an ensuite, 7 with an ensuite. Shared communal lounge and kitchen. A door takes you through to the back garden, and another door takes you into the last bedroom, bedroom 8 on the ground floor, with its not quite an ensuite, but clearly next to that bedroom. Then going up, there's a bike store you can see in the back garden, and there is the side alleyway that takes you through the tunnel and down into the back gardens, into this garden in particular, to a bike store. Upstairs, bedroom 3 with an ensuite, bedroom 4 with an ensuite, bedroom 5 with an ensuite, and in the roof, again, 2 bedrooms and 2 ensuites. So the property would be extended with a permitted development, minor sideways extension here. If I just flip back to the previous, whoops. So it's in this position just here. Is that minor permitted development extension to get the kitchen diner to size. The rear extension replacing existing is a prior approval dating from earlier this year. And then in the roof, a permitted development roof extension and roof lights at the front, and the rear extension to the back. You notice some roof lights to the generous size, very large roof lights to the kitchen dining area, obviously to maximise light, as well as its south-facing window and the back door. So this is the fairly traditional approach, if I can use that word, in approach for the bedrooms. So they're of the bigger size, all 10 square metres or more, which means that the shared communal space can be the 22.5 square metres. It is 24.16, so it exceeds that minimum size. And as I say, all the bedrooms exceed the 10 square metres by a little bit, or as far as 13, 15, 16, and so on. So the bigger rooms in the roof area. So combined with the, I forgot to mention a downstairs loo separate as well for convenience. So officers are satisfied that all the room sizes individually and collectively meet your standards, and in conjunction provide a satisfactory form of accommodation, including with access to light and the actual shape of the rooms and the overall accommodation. So on that basis, officers were happy to recommend approval. As I say, there are a number of objections set out in the report, and we have a deputation to follow. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. We first of all go to Mr. Payne. If you have 6 minutes, Mr. Payne.
I'll only be a couple of minutes. I've lived in the town for 73 years, all my life, and it's the first time I've had to come to the planning to object to something, and I'm really disgusted that there are so many HMOs in the North End area. Whether it's legal or not, I don't know, but I am so upset that I had to come and say that I don't believe it's correct to have another HMO in such a short space with the extra sewage, which is going to be phenomenal, the gas, water, all the different things that people don't think about, and oh, the planning, oh yeah, that'd be okay. It just keeps on, and not just one, we've got 3 now in very close proximity. If everyone was taken up, every house or every room was taken up, it would be a phenomenal amount of waste going down our old Victorian sewerages. And I'm sorry, I just don't believe it's suitable for Gladys Avenue anymore. We have enough more occupants. Across the east side, there are multiple occupancies, but they're not registered HMOs. There are people living in 2 or 3 rooms that don't count, but it's just getting beyond a joke now. I've lived in Gladys Avenue for 40 years, nearly, and it's just going downhill. My house must be devalued now because of all the HMOs. I will stay. I'm sorry, but I've had to come. Thank you very much for letting me speak.
No, it's a pleasure to have you here, sir. Okay, Mrs. Payne.
Thank you. I speak on behalf of my neighbour, Mr. Keating, who has, I think you have a copy of his objection, but I also say that I am in 100% agreement with what he says, so please take this as my objection as well. The number of HMOs is growing, and yes, it will only come to 6.5%. But when we moved to Gladys Avenue 40 years ago, it was an avenue of home dwellings for families, and there is still a great need in Portsmouth for family dwellings. We have schools nearby, we have all the medical amenities nearby, we have libraries nearby. Everything is set there for families. We also do not have space for parking. If these 8 rooms go to people with 8 individual forms of transport, cars basically, there will be no parking. I already know of residents who have to park up at the Mountbatten Centre overnight, and their cars have been vandalised whilst there. So it's not acceptable. Also, may I just point out, and I know this is a minor, but for nigh on 40 years, that alleyway has a locked door. And this has been for very good reason, because when it hasn't been locked, there has been vandalism. There have been people going up the alleyway, if you excuse my basicness, to pee, etc. They have caused problems, and they have been able to break into houses by the rear access. Now, that would have to be totally open all the time, which I appreciate the bike shelter and everything else, but I think if this is going to happen, then please consider the bike shelter at the front of the building, not at the rear, for the safety of all of us who are neighbours, and that access is not good because all the not so honest people around will use it, without a doubt. It's been proved before. The other thing I wanted to say is that we were a family residential area, as I've said, and although the HMOs will be at this point 6.5%, there are other more rundown properties in the vicinity for sale, which I believe are ideal for developers, and I know that's probably in train, but it's looking forward. But as you will see from Mr. Keating, our residence is 81, his is 83. The only other residence in this block from 83 to 129 is number 89, that is still a family residence. They are HMOs and they are multiple use flats. And to coin a phrase that used to be used many years ago from the area down Nightingale Road, it's becoming bedsit land. And I'm not opposed. I know people need housing, and I do feel for people who are homeless and need this housing. But I am also very much aware that families need housing. And even if this were to be 2 flats, it would accommodate families. I think the HMO saturation is, if it were to get to 10% here, given the flats, the parking and all the other facilities that will be needed for the number of residents, it is definitely, please, unadvisable. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just to pick up some of those things, the way in which the planning system works is that the government produces a national planning policy that we have to stick to. And we're allowed sort of some local discretion over some of it, but that then has to be approved by a government planning inspector. We have rules about HMOs, the 10% limit. The advice is we're never going to be able to persuade the government to allow us a lower limit, but we've got a 10% limit. Fareham, Gosport don't have any limits. You can have 100% HMOs there, but we do have them in Portsmouth. We've tried using sewage and we've tried using parking as reasons to say no. And the way in which the planning system works is if we say no, a developer can go to appeal to a government planning inspector and they get the final say. And the national planning inspectors have said that they're not interested in either sewage or parking as reasons to say no. So we already know that we have to, those don't work with the national planning inspectors. I think your point about the gate, if this goes through, is a really very good one. And I don't know when the applicant comes forward whether they'll be able to say that that gate would remain locked, because that might help to a degree. That would be down to any applicant, but it's a good point, well made. And thank you both very much for coming. Okay, Ms Wells, welcome.
Thank you. I just wanted to address, I'm hearing you saying about the family homes. I feel very passionate that people in these properties have families in Portsmouth too. They also deserve a nice home and place in which to live. HMOs can play an important part of mixed and balanced communities in providing an affordable, all bills included option for young professionals, and this is demonstrated by the easiest properties are let. I do appreciate your concerns, both of your concerns and obviously the street concerns. I would like to reassure you that a well-managed HMO is often not like you're going to imagine it being. A disruptive family could equally move in next door and be far noisier because they're teenagers there, slamming doors, like living together, and they use a property in a completely different way than 7 individuals. The lock gate, I hear what you're saying about that. We manage a number of properties where they've got the shared alleyways, and I have to say that we find neighbours from properties all sharing that alleyway throwing fridge freezers over there. And the ones where actually we have the recycle access for our properties, it's actually our landlords and our maintenance team that will keep those alleyways clear to ensure that access remains. So they're very keen to be able to order, make sure that alleyways are clear and security friendly, so that they can offer those to the tenants that live in there. And I thought maybe a keypad lock, as you were saying that about the locks, maybe something like that could be fitted so everyone has a code, all the neighbours could have the code, the tenants could have a code, then obviously people that don't live on the street wouldn't know the code and there'd be no access. That's something that they have in rear gates quite frequently, so it could be quite an easy option to solve. I'm happy to discuss that with the owner and I can't see that being an issue. I wanted to stress that this is a spacious property and all the bedrooms range from 10.6 to 16.27. They all have their own shower room and the communal area when all bedrooms is 10 square metres, required is 22.5. This property provides 24.02 of fully usable communal area, which exceeds that requirement. And as the officer said, the additional light will be provided into the space with 2 large roof lanterns, and there is an additional WC at ground floor level. The property benefits from the side access, which we've discussed, which will appeal to keen cyclists who prefer the ease of access to the rear cycle store. In the committee report, it's mentioned that the applicant was yet to complete the Section 111 and required mitigation, but I can confirm this has now been fully addressed and the completed agreement has been received by Portsmouth City Council. This application fully complies with policy PCS 17, PCS 20 and PCS 23 of the local plan and is fully compliant with the housing multiple occupation. And I respectfully request that you approve this application in line with the officer recommendation today. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hunt, as ward councillor.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Payne. And presumably you have all read the letter from Mr. Keating. You will see in there evidently that Councillor Adair and I, we've been up and down Wadham Road and Gladys Road for a long time, and our views are very well known about the way that HMOs are ripping the heart out of this particular neighbourhood. It's caused a great deal of anxiety and worry for people living in that community, and it is a community as described by Mr. and Mrs. Payne. We really don't want this to go through. We would ask that you reject it, and we would ask you to look very carefully again at the issues you've raised, Chairman, that is around sewage and particularly parking. We know as ward councillors that the parking up and down Gladys Avenue is ultra competitive, probably one of the most competitive anywhere in Portsmouth, if that's possible. But you've also got problems with passing and so on. And Mrs. Payne has told you how people have to go up to the Mountbatten Centre to park in any event. And with the best will in the world, people don't always, probably won't come by cycles. Professional people may or may not, and I know that there's a growing use of cycling in the city and we want to encourage that. So that brings me swiftly to the alleyway. Now, Ciaran does her job well. She makes good representations. That is her job. But alleyways and HMOs really do not go together. With the best will in the world, you can put a lock on the, you can say you're going to put a greatest respect to Karen, you can put a lock, a code lock on the door, it will break down, it will get left open by the people taking their cycles around the back, and it will afford access to opportunities for burglary and crime and peeing in the alleyway and a whole bunch of other things that actually do not go on there right now. You, at this committee, I think 3 or 4 rotations ago, heard an impassioned plea from a lady, I think it was in Copner, and she had a similar issue, and you threw out the application on the grounds of preventing crime or fear of crime, and I think that is highly relevant here. This alleyway does afford access to a lot of the properties at the back, and my concern is if you were to pass it, you'll be creating a rod for my back, but also the residents. It'll fill up with rubbish, and it will allow people to climb over the walls and burgle properties in that area. You don't get that with properties that do not have alleyways, and Mr. and Mrs. Payne are correct that this is a crime opportunity which hasn't been considered in the report and should have been. We used to ask the police, but we don't seem to do that anymore. Swiftly now, made a strong representation about that, and I hope you reject it on fear of crime and prevention of crime. Secondly, I need to bring you to the report at 8.7, if members would look at that, and read the paragraph, because I don't understand it. I have tried to. It says, based on information held by the City Council, the 65 properties within a 50-metre radius, 3 have been identified as existing HMOs, and this equates to about 4.6% of the properties in the search area. The objections identified a number of properties that could be possible HMOs, i.e. 91 Gladys Avenue, which I think our officers said is an sorry, beg your pardon, he didn't. And the, 91 Gladys Avenue and a property on Nelson Avenue at the back of 89 Gladys Avenue. The case officer checked the planning history and consulted PSH and about 10 to 50 Nelson Avenue. None of these properties has planning permission or an HMO license to operate as an HMO. Therefore, if any of these properties is used as an HMO, it is likely this use is unauthorised, and as such, they cannot be included in the number of existing HMOs within the 50-metre radius. Now, Mr. Chairman, if I read that right, it means nobody's been to check. I mean, it's a very best is ambiguous, and but it says to me that nobody's actually been to check to find out. So if you were to pass this application today, and there were already existing HMOs in the area, and I also look at what Mr. Keating's written in about 101, which may or may not be on the border, and a couple of others in there, I think that we've got a problem where you might be passing an application that would take the number of HMOs in that area over 10%. It's just that the City Council or the local planning authority hasn't been along to check from what I can see. So if you're minded to pass the application, which I hope you won't for fear of crime, sewage, and all the other issues mentioned by Mr. Payne, I would hope very much that you would defer it, if you were minded to pass it, so that these properties that have been raised can be checked out, and you can be certain that it is a full and proper and accurate report, because from what I can see now, it doesn't look accurate. It's been waiting for a long time, so to the next rotation of the planning committee isn't that far away. I think it's 3 weeks. It wouldn't be much of a deferral, and then allow it to come back, and you would have perhaps a more complete report. I urge you to reject it. The alleyway is a great concern. There are better places for an HMO than this, and the alleyway needs to be kept locked. Otherwise, I'm going to come back and budget a lot of you when we start getting crimes and we start getting people going down there behaving in an antisocial way because the gate's being left open. It's very difficult, we all know, to deal with these alleyways, and we've got control of this one. And if we do something in planning which adds to our problems, I will be very sore indeed. And so, of course, will the neighbours. I hope I've given a good account of how things really are.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Hunt. There was a specific question Mr Turner from Councillor Hunt about whether somebody has, from planning, has physically been to look at the properties that have been, where there's been a question raised.
Not physically. I think we might have done, or probably would have done, if there'd been one identified property, but because there was a generalisation about other properties on Nelson Avenue, a large number of properties to check and so on would be A, difficult, and B, perhaps non-conclusive, actually getting into the properties, and et cetera, So it was desk-based in terms of checking all the records that we have available.
Okay, my concern is that, having looked at the map here with the 10% rule, there would look as if there are 4 named properties, because with the flats don't count as HMOs, the flats are separate, but there are 4 properties which are listed as where people say there are HMOs that are within the 50-metre radius, and if they all were, that would take us to 12.3%, which is over the 10% threshold, and therefore there would be an automatic refusal of this application. A generalised thing, just to say, I think there are too many HMOs, whatever, I don't think works. But this is something where people are given specific house numbers, where there is a concern, and if they are correct, it would already take us over that 10% threshold. So I think in this specific case, I think there is an argument for doing some more work to look physically at whether these are HMOs or not, would be my view. But Councillor Smythe.
I read that paragraph 8.7 and I thought it was an inadequate paragraph for us to consider. I get a lot. I'm in have an allotment in Moneyfields, and I have constant conversations about HMOs in this area, and there are a lot of people who believe that we aren't counting properly. And I think we need to count properly and have evidence on the ground that people have been to check, saying that it isn't a registered HMO isn't enough. And we must make sure that our excellent policy of sticking to 10% HMOs within a 50-metre radius is absolutely sacrosanct and protected and backed by real information. We're not at the stage of proposals yet, are we?
No.
But I think there is a case for deferral here, while it's we actually find out.
And the thing that also concerns me, and I think following on, is we see in our weekly thing that we get sent as all the planning applications, is we often get things for a certificate of lawful development. So if you've got an HMO that is not have planning permission, if you have it for 10 years without planning permission, you get planning permission automatically. So we are duty bound, it seems to me, to, if we've been given real information, to take that seriously. Okay, any other questions? Simon, you were waving.
Just at the opportune moment to come back on the matter of the 10% and so on.
Okay, well, let's leap in, Simon.
Thank you. So, to be clear, in the report, the original objection referred to 2 other HMOs that the neighbour thought existed. One at number 91, which are flats.
Yep.
So
and I've not included that.
Yep. And one more on Nelson Avenue. We don't know about Nelson Avenue to the nth degree, but were there to be one, as suspected by the neighbour, that would take the percentage still below the 10%.
But then there's 93 and 101, both of which within the 50-metre radius.
Yeah, no. So to the representation from Mr. Keating. Mr. Keating, yes. On the 3rd page, he's got a list of properties. We agree number 87 is an HMO. We agree number 93 is an HMO. Number 101 is indeed consented for an HMO, but it's outside the 50-metre radius, as is number 129. So the data we have in terms of council tax, licensing and planning history, we think is pretty robust It dates from 2011 when we introduced the Article 4, when most landlords took the opportunity to register at that time if they had an HMO in existence, which didn't need planning permission at the time, and that's how we picked up with that trawl at that time quite a lot of the evidence that we retain to this day. And so extra HMOs appearing since that date unlawfully, I think, are limited. So even if there is an extra HMO on Nelson Avenue, the policy will still not be breached.
Simon, I've counted the houses down, and 101 looks as if it is clipped by the 50-metre radius and is indicated as a building, and therefore would count.
Let me just check. It was... No, 99 is the one that's clipped. 101 is half a property outside the 50-metre radius.
Okay. All right.
I can show you on the screen if you like.
Okay, I've got Councillor Mason and Councillor Shah.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick one, actually. When the board councillor, my colleague, requested or suggested to get these properties confirmed first before we either decline the application or approve the application. Why can't this be done? I think that's not a bad idea to do it, because planning permission approving any property for HMO, not on assumption on the facts and figures we got on the ground. The staff said actually half of the property may be within the 50 meters, so take it that half and then see where we got the percentage to.
Thank you. Councillor Mason.
Well, I won't comment on that, but straight enough, looking at the actual application for HMO, the ground floor bedroom, bedroom 7, seems to be very limited in its light. How is this lit? How big are the windows? And are they, my question basically is there sufficient light going in to bedroom 7? Ground floor.
Thank you, Councillor. Yep. So there is a window looking down the light well. This, as I said right at the start, these aren't the traditional Victorian properties that have the 2-storey rear wing, which clearly reduces light in the light well area. These are single-storey extensions. Next door to the immediate south is you can't see it, but it's a conservatory, single-storey conservatory. So the light entering from the south and then from the southwest in the afternoons into this area, including bedroom 7, is uninterrupted really from the sky, and even direct sunlight will be, I would say, uninterrupted by next door's single-storey conservatory. And you've got the width of the alleyway as well, keeping development further away. And then the applicant has shown a full height window there, which is predicting or assuming that there might have been a question about that, and so they've included extra glazing there to gain more light into that particular room.
Thank you.
Thank you, but my understanding, Mr. Turner, is that the alleyway is being reduced in width because they're building out into part of the alleyway to extend the living room to bring it up to the space standard we require. Is that correct?
No, it's all on the property. So there you've got a wide open first part of the back garden.
Okay.
And they're proposing to build across about half of it.
Okay, all right, sorry. Okay. Okay, any other questions, colleagues? No? In terms of comments and proposals, Matthew, I see you loitering over a thing.
Just a comment, Chair, if I may.
Of course.
Gladys Avenue has 5 bus stops, a school keep clear section, as well as multiple areas of WO lines. So as you can imagine, parking is already very stretched. If I could bring your attention to section 8.19 of the report. It states that the City Council's parking standards set the level of off-road parking spaces for developments such as this at 2. And with the expected level for a Class 3 dwelling house with 3 bedrooms at 1.5. So as you can see, we have a difference there of 1.5. I'm sorry, of 0.5. So we continue to lose even more parking. Gladys Avenue is already without many spaces, parking spaces, and this HMO will just add more pressure onto the road and the surrounding area, with roads such as Shadwell Road, Ophir Road and Oriel Road being affected by this as well. They already have high levels of HMOs in the area, and I just feel that parking is an issue that we need to talk about, and I know we can't take it into consideration, but it's just a comment that I thought I'd put forward.
And I have to say, I went down the road a while ago and I saw the double yellow lines opposite things like Wadham Road as they come in, etc. And initially I thought, that's a real waste of parking spaces. But then again, I got to the top and the number of buses coming down and people passing meant that I was wrong. And that actually you need those passing places because it's a bus route. You need to have them big enough for a bus to be able to get through. I'm sure that Councillor Candlish will ask colleagues in the transport team to look to see if there's anything we can do, because everybody knows there's real pressure of parking in that area. But we've tried, and we've tried before with the government planning inspector to say this doesn't have enough parking, and they've laughed at us. And there's no point, in my view, trying to say to residents, okay, we're going to make a decision, it's going to stick, when we know that the government planning inspector is just going to throw it out. Because I think that's just not being honest with people. So my proposal, I think I want us to have another look at this, because I think there is a question mark over the numbers of HMOs, and we need to physically go and look. And this is not just people saying, oh, there's too many or other things. These are specific properties that have been listed over which there is a question, and if they are right, then it takes it over the threshold, and that would mean that there's a different decision. So my view is that this should be deferred to allow this to be looked at again carefully. And this shouldn't be the case in every case, because this is exceptional. And my thanks to people who've come from the local area to give us this information, because it's not always the case that people do. So my proposal is to defer this, to allow this to be looked at, to see if the HMOs are the things that people think our HMOs really are, or not, and then we come back again for the next meeting. Councillor Smythe.
I'd like to second that.
Hold a second, Juliet.
I'd like to second that. I don't usually think deferrals are very interesting, but this paragraph 8.7 as it stands makes it look as if we, the planning committee, in public, are willing to potentially overturn our recommendation, our very strict policy about the number of HMOs in the 50-metre radius. And I think this has not been, either it's not been well phrased or it is very ambiguous, and I would like to get to the bottom of it, not least that I have more fun at my allotment when I go there.
Okay, thank you. Juliet. Oh, Simon.
Thank you. I haven't found the original objection, but it was about one property, so trying to be specific rather than spending the case officer up and down the road visiting 5, 10, 20 properties. I would suggest the best way is to contact the neighbour and say, which property did you mean, please? Which number? Can you point it out to us? And then we can visit one specific property and get that answer more straightforwardly than a trawl.
So, sorry, I think I'd want us to do more than that, Simon. I think there's a list, more than one property listed here. I'm sure the local councillors will help, but I think we need to look at more than one property. Councillor Candlish hasn't come in yet, then I'll come back to you, Councillor.
I was just going to say, I'm agreeing with you, we need more than that. It is, I'm afraid, a little bit more work, but it'll save us in the long run.
Councillor Candlish?
I think I might ultimately be agreeing with this decision, but I think just two quick comments that we need to think about, because we are potentially setting something of a precedent here about what we need to do. So we need to be very clear about the evidence, the reason why we're doing it. Otherwise, I know from all the other HMO applications, because people have a general, it is absolutely true that parking is a nightmare across the city. I often state the statistic that we've gone from 90,000 cars in the city in 2010 to 115,000 today. That's 25,000 more cars. Portsmouth hasn't got bigger. Go figure why we've got problems on narrow streets where the width of a house may be smaller than the one car in front of it. Which is why we end up getting into residential parking zones, because that does put a limit on the number of permits that are available to be issued per property. So even if there is an 8-bedroom property, only 2 of those people within that can then have a parking permit. And I've had exactly this issue about an HMO in my ward just recently. Now, even 2, I understand the level of parking problem up there. So it's just we need to be very, very clear so that we don't in future have loads and loads of people just asserting something. I agree, this has been a particularly good and well-argued one with specific evidence, and therefore I would be willing to support in this case for deferral, but I think we have to think about the precedent we're setting.
Okay. Councillor Mason?
Chairman, I would not vote against deferral in this case, but I think we've got to be clear what we're looking for is to make ourselves absolutely sure that there are not more than 10%, or that if we accepted this one, it would not bring it to more than 10% in the area. That is the only ground we've got which will stand up against Her Majesty's Planning Inspectorate. Sorry, His Majesty's Planning Inspectorate. I'm getting old.
That's true.
True. And I think we've got to have something which will stand up against the Planning Inspectorate. And it is that 10% of which we need to be absolutely sure. But I think it is also worth commenting that this, as just viewed as an HMO, is a very good conversion. It meets all of our space standards. Everybody has access to en-suite facilities. And I wish that other applications which we have seen met over the years have met that quality. So it is a good application. The only question is it in the right place?
Yes, whether it's legal or not. Okay, because there is one proposal on the table. Sorry, Juliet, Simon, David.
Chair, yes, it was just to kind of emphasise a point that's been alluded to. I think our concern would be that it's possible to obviously disrupt the process through the anecdotal suggestion of HMOs in an area whereby our own robust evidence in terms of licensing, planning history, our housing department council tax doesn't point to those actually being HMOs. As you've heard from Mr. Turner, the introduction of the Article 4 did give us a very good knowledge base in terms of HMOs. In terms of the third party's comment from, I believe it's Mrs. Webb, I mean, that's an allegation of one additional HMO in the area, and as you've heard from Mr. Turner, that wouldn't take you over the 10%, even if that was a HMO. So I do just have to, in effect, back the concerns that have just been raised from members about the possibility that you could end up with your ability to make a decision on any of these HMOs paralysed each time, if it's possible to just, in effect, allege on the basis of the anecdotal that there are more than one or a number of properties in the area are HMOs, and that will make it very difficult for you to make decisions going forward. We do emphasise you can have confidence in the robustness of the information that we give you in our reports.
Yeah, David, normally I'd agree, and with general statements saying it's just not representative, but I think here there are specific, and this is an unusual case, and I would not accept it to set precedent for people just saying, oh, there are lots more, but I think it's worth investigating this a little bit more. So I'm happy to propose the deferral. That's the one thing on the thing that's been proposed. Can I see those in favour of deferral for one meeting? One. And those against, please show. And those abstaining, please show. Okay, so that's deferred for one thing, so we can do some more investigation. Thank you very much indeed, colleagues. Let's move along. I think we are now on Well, I think, I expect Councillor Hunt will know Councillor Adair's number. Okay. Councillor Adair, can you take a seat, please? And can we have your attention? Otherwise, we'll have to throw you out because you haven't been here for the whole time of an application. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Payne. Thank you, Mr. Payne. Okay, Montgomery Road. David, is this yourself? Or is...
It's Mr. Turner, Chair.
Simon.
Thank you, Chairman. This is an application at 20 Montgomery Road in St Thomas Ward. It's an application, it's a retrospective application for a change of use from a 6-bed, 6-person house and multiple occupation to a 7-bed, 7-person HMO. The application has come to committee because of the blanket call-in for the intensification or the increased occupancy of existing HMOs matter. Montgomery Road is just south of Winston Churchill Avenue, which you can just see skirting along the northern part of the site. So we're just to the northeast here, you get up to the roundabout at the top of Victoria Road North. It's terrace property, marked there with an arrow, and there you can see it from the back as well, just backs onto that area of incidental open space dating from the 60s and the road changes. With respect to the matter of the local balance of residential uses, this property is already in an HMO use, of course, so that makes no difference. This application for the increased occupancy by 1 person makes no difference to the local balance, which is, for completeness, 41%.
Mr. Turner, in the papers, we don't have the plans.
Yes, I've just realised that, with apologies. I can take you through them all here.
But if it's possible in future, it'd be very helpful.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened, with apologies.
That's fine.
This is a relatively normal or common Victorian layout with the main body of the house and the 2-storey rear wing originally, now 3-storey with a roof extension, and then a further ground floor extension at the rear. You may have noticed from the report there's a fair deal of history to this site dating from 2017 with 3 applications pre-COVID, and there's been a fairly complex set of changing circumstances at the site with our updated policy guidance in 2018 and then 2019, the progression of nitrates and the SPA mitigation changing over time, affecting decisions, the Campbell decisions on the increased occupancy, and also how we've dealt with existing HMOs and increased occupancy. These different factors have elongated the process, getting towards hopefully a conclusion today, if members were to approve the application. So it's got a bit of a complex history, but now the situation is relatively straightforward. As you can see, we have 6 bedrooms, so ground floor 1, first floor 2, 3, 4, and in the roof 5 and 6, and the shared communal kitchen dining room, and then a lounge on the ground floor. That is already occupied as a bedroom, hence the retrospective nature of the application. Now I'll show you the slides side by side in a minute as well. So first of all, there's the extra bedroom seeking to regularise that use. And then the 2 other changes which are set out in the report are bedroom 5 being enlarged to make it to size at 10 square metres, and that is achieved by making the existing, what was a bathroom, smaller, but still meeting size standards. And then in the roof space, bedroom 2 wasn't to size either in terms of the 10 square metres, and so that requires a further permitted development, about a 1 metre further extension of the roof. And then that would tie everything up neatly and in accordance with your policy. So I can just show you to the one external change. That's the existing permitted development rear roof extension. And if you look below, it's just being extended by about 1 metre. That's a proposal to bring up that bedroom, bedroom 2, to more than 10 square metres and to comply with your policy. So I've got the comparison plans for you. So the 2 bedrooms in question here at the rear. So previously, this bedroom was slightly undersized at 8.06, and there was quite a larger bathroom. So the bathroom's been sized down to a shower room that still meets the standard, exceeds the standard, and bedroom 5 therefore now meets the 10 square metres. So that internal change deals with that issue. In the roof space, bedroom 2 was undersized. That's the rear extension, the further permitted development roof extension to bring that up to 10 square metres. And then the existing kitchen dining room meets your standard. So with the 1 internal change and the 1 external change, this property now meets your standards for occupation by 7 persons, and everything is put to bed if you agree to those. So first of all, of course, let's go back slightly. Because the increased occupancy of 1 person is considered by officers in this instance not to be material change of use that requires planning permission. That's why, as you're familiar, when we conclude that, the recommendation is an unconditional permission. So as per usual, the committee will decide whether or not it feels planning permission is required. If it should consider permission is required, consider the merits of the application. And in this instance, were members to approve the application, decide that it needed permission and to approve it, one of the conditions would be that the various works you've seen are completed. The internal change, I think, has already happened, and then the external roof extension, which would happen by next summer or during next summer when the property is vacated of students, being student accommodation near the university. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Ms Wells.
Thank you. Firstly, I feel I've got a comment on the previous deferral. I feel like you're at risk now of getting our repeat objectors that constantly comment on things, giving you multiple numbers of houses, and having planning officers run around all over the place checking houses, when, as Mr Hodges stated, they have access to robust evidence, council tax data, etc., which confirms how property is being used. I don't think applicants should be penalised against making perfectly valid applications because someone may have chosen to have an unlawful HMO elsewhere. Rant over. With this property, as the planning officers mentioned, it's retrospective. I want to stress that my client has done everything correctly along the way with this and finds himself in this position due to the extremely long process his application has had to be here today. And I just wanted to expand on that history with you. So in August 2018, a 6 to 7 bed application was refused at committee due to increased effect on a mixed and balanced community. The scheme was fully compliant with all policies and should have been approved. In July 2019, the appeal decision was dismissed, but on lack of nitrate mitigation only. The inspector was happy that the property provided a good standard of living conditions for 7 persons, and the increase of 1 person was not considered to be material above that of the existing 6-bed use. The planning application was resubmitted in December 2019 to satisfy the nitrate only and to complete a legal agreement. This was appealed for non-determination in May 2020, 5 months after the application was submitted, as the applicant did not feel 5 months purely to complete a Section 111 agreement was an acceptable time to wait. PCC maintained as the appeal defence that they would have refused the application for a second time against the previous inspector decision, this time due to a standard of communal living area. A new HMO SPD was adopted between the 2 applications, which increased the size standard requirement. Through no fault of the applicant, the delay now meant the property did not meet the current size standards. The appeal was refused in January 2021, where the inspector agreed the new increased size standards should be met. And the inspector also confirmed the 7th bedroom was not tenanted at this site visit, so I just wanted to stress he was keen to not actually move that extra person in. Again, do nothing wrong. So in April 2021, the Campbell case appeal decision confirms that an increase of 1 person to an existing 6-bed HMO is not a material planning consideration, and therefore planning is not required. The applicant had spoke to somebody at the council who was told that he did not need to submit an application of any sort of proposed change of use, which he was considering at that time increasing these bedroom sizes. Didn't submit at that time because he was told a planning was not required. So the property then became occupied by 7 students, as all advice from PCC at that time was that the increase was not material. In January of this year, the owner was contacted by enforcement regarding a possible breach of planning permission, even though PCC still maintain this increase is not material. Before you is a revised scheme which the owner will now have to be spending further money on to increase the rear bedrooms on the first and second floor to make it fully compliant with the current HMO SPD. This will be achieved by extending the dormer to increase the second floor rear bedroom to meet the 10 square metre standard, and by reducing the large bathroom on the first floor to increase the adjacent rear bedroom. This would then result in the communal area requirement of 22.5 and the property provides 23. This now once again fully meets the current HMO SPD room standards. The property provides 2 shower rooms and a separate WC, which again is fully compliant with policy. The property has always been let to students and due to the convenient location will continue to be. Student tenancies are mostly joint tenancies of a group of friends who know each other. Whilst you as members are used to seeing ensuite facilities, these rooms will be offered at a lower price point, and the sharing of bathrooms as friends living together is not an issue and is sometimes preferred due to the lower rents. I feel it's important to stress that the applicant is asking today if you as members can take into account the stressful journey has been on presenting 2 fully compliant applications, yet is still in the position over 5 years later where planning has not been granted. I'm confident if this application is refused today, having proposed increases to the 2 of the rear bedrooms, this would be successful at appeal with costs. I respectfully ask that you agree with the other officer recommendation for a fully compliant application today. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Colleagues, the first thing we have to do is decide if we think this needs planning permission. In my view, as I keep saying, it clearly does. When an HMO application comes in and says it is for up to 6 people, that's what it says on the tin, and that's what it means. And therefore, anything more needs a new planning application. Therefore, I would say that this definitely needs planning on the basis that even though this is an area of extremely high number of HMOs already, there are real problems with antisocial behaviour, parking, rubbish, and therefore it needs planning permission. And therefore I'm going to propose that it should need planning permission. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Shah. Can I see those in favour of saying it needs planning permission? That is unanimous. Thank you. Next, any questions to the officers, colleagues? Councillor Shah.
Just general question actually about HMOs. Is there any special requirement for especially mid-terrace properties in regards to cavity wall insulation, or that is standard as normal dwelling houses?
I suspect we will be told this is a building regulations issue. No. Simon is waving his eyebrows.
No, indeed, it is a building regulations issue, and I wouldn't like to guess if there's any difference in the standard. I think the agent will almost certainly know if you wanted to ask the question. But
Carrie Ann, does it have insulation?
It was 5 years ago, so I couldn't say for definite, but it would have been up to current building regs at that time and would have been improved on the original dwelling.
Okay, I don't think building regs demand insulation.
No, they add additional insulation on the internal walls. Generally, cavity wall insulation is not a popular choice for lots of people due to increasing issues it might cause.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for the officers? No. From my point of view, we're coming to comments. That this application looks as if it's compliant with our policies, and therefore I can't see a reason to say no. Therefore, I'm happy to make a recommendation. We grant planning permission with the usual conditions of SPA. SPA is the bird tax, isn't it? Timings. What else? Nitrates.
Shall I read them out?
Yes, please.
I've got them written down.
Yeah,
thank you, Chairman.
Simon.
Yep. So, 3 years to implement the permission. Number 2, the plans. Number 3, bike store. Number 4, water efficiency connected with nitrates. Number 5, maximum 7 occupants. Number 6, complete the works as specified in the report, internal and external.
With a time limit, Simon?
1st of September 2025. Okay. And then legal agreement for the SPA mitigation.
Okay. With those conditions, do I have a seconder? Councillor Mason. Okay. Any other proposals? Can I see those in favour of granting planning permission? Those against? Those abstaining? Thank you. Planning permission is granted. Thank you very much indeed. Last application, 76, Orchard Road. And so at the briefing I had a question about whether this came to committee for it to be given planning permission or whether it was under delegated powers, and David will of course tell me.
For this application, Chair, it was...
Because this is built out and consented. The issue here is the number of occupants, as I understand it. This did get planning permission through Portsmouth City Council, and the question I had at the briefing was whether this had come through the planning committee or whether it had been just given by delegated power by officers. Do we know?
The 2017 application, I will confirm that at the end of the presentation.
Okay, thank you. David, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so this is an application for a retrospective application for the occupation of the property as a 7-bed house in multiple occupation. So the site is in Central Southsea Ward, and Orchard Road is one road south parallel to Goldsmith Avenue. So you see the location of the property there, end terrace property. There is a access down the side to a rear access area for the properties, which you can see there. In terms of the property, very typical of the properties in the area, and is end of terrace house which has been latterly extended in its use as a HMO. In terms of the your policy and the balanced communities, property is already a house in multiple occupation, and it makes no difference to the overall number in the area, which currently significantly exceeds the 10% in your policy. So this is a property. These extensions alterations were granted in 2017, and these have been carried out, and that permission was granted under delegated authority. So this is the layout. This is a slightly atypical layout in the way that the rooms, particularly on the ground floor, are arranged. So you have 3 bedrooms indicated on the ground floor with a living space, and then a kitchen and bathroom, shared shower room, and then 3 bedrooms to the first floor and the final bedroom in the loft. Just to take you through the planning history. So you'll see there's 2 previous applications. So in 2012, the property was already operating as a HMO, and so that's recorded in the decision which was granted in 2012 to allow the use between C3 and C4. So it's already a HMO then. When the application came to extend the property in 2017, you can see on the left-hand side that the existing floor plan of the building included an internal bedroom with no evident actual access to natural light. So when we granted the 2017 permission, that was actually an improvement, as that took that bedroom out of use as a bedroom and then became the kitchen. It's also worth pointing out that the property, if it was operating as a HMO in 2012, that precedes your local plan policy, the Article 4 direction control, and also the 2019 supplementary planning guidance, which has imposed higher standards on these going forward. So that was the alterations that were granted in 2017, which is effectively how the property is today and how it's been operating as a HMO since. And just finally, this just shows you the alterations that have been already taken place with the rear extensions and the rear roof dormer. Just to correct a couple of points from the report, Chair. So we have checked, and the bike store indicated isn't in situ on site. And just for clarity, when the property was applied for and extended in 2017, it was a 5-bed HMO, and that extended it to a 7-bed. So it was 2 additional occupants rather than 1 occupant. So just to confirm our point, Chair, our professional view is that it's not a material change of use that requires planning permission, notwithstanding that the applicants applied to regularise the situation. The property has been operating as a HMO since before 2012, before, as I said, the guidance and the additional control and the higher standards that have been applied. Effectively, there's no change as a result of the application, and our view is as if, even if the planning application were refused today, the property could lawfully continue to operate as a 7-bed HMO. And just to emphasise the other points in the SMAT, the updates, that the property has been licensed as a HMO since 2017 for 7 people and ongoing. So as before, our recommendation is that the application is granted without conditions, as we believe there's a fallback position to continue to operate as a 7-bed HMO without planning permission, Chair.
Okay. We don't have any deputations on this one, so the first thing we have to decide if it needs planning permission. I think it does. Should we just say exactly the same as last time? Can I see those in favour of that? Please show. Thank you. Those against and those abstaining. Thank you. So that we think it does need planning permission. I can see, David, I can see your point that turning a bedroom with no natural light into a kitchen is probably the right thing to have done, but I am disappointed we have a room with no natural light, but it is probably better that it's not a bedroom. And that was a decision that was made that we're stuck with. I don't think we get any choice in this, so my view is we grant planning permission, and I'm happy to propose that we grant planning permission. And Councillor Candlish, are you wanting a different view?
I had a question.
Oh, sorry, beg your pardon, my apologies.
Because I mean, I agree. I think we're going to get to the point where eventually this is going to have to go through. But I also just wanted to explore on the cycle point, which is not really the biggest point in the world, but it's a point of principle a little bit. Did I understand that this should have had a bicycle shed and does not?
No, because in effect, when both in 2012 and 2017, that predated our current policies.
Okay, so Councillor Hugh Mason.
Having looked at this on Google Earth last night, I still remain concerned about the size of the skylight, which is the only source of light, natural light, coming into the kitchen. It still appears to be quite small. Can we condition that we require a larger skylight there?
David?
Chair, I don't think that would pass the test of reasonableness for a condition, bearing in mind our position that the building already is consented by the council previously. It was clearly shown as a 7-bed HMO in 2017. You know, rights for light and need for light and outlook and etc. Were the same in 2017 as they are now. So I don't believe we would have reasonable grounds to ask for additional light in this situation, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Smythe.
Further to the discussion about cycle space, could we confirm that the access to the cycle space is along the side wall and doesn't require going through kitchen and other things in this particular application?
Yes, Chair, there is a side gate.
Yes.
As you go down into that rear access, there is,
Yeah,
site
I couldn't see it on that, but it is on
No,
the
no,
plan.
but it's difficult to see, but there is definitely a side gate there, Chair.
Thank you, because otherwise it would have to go through bedrooms and things, and that's not on. Thank you.
So, David, we'd normally have the normal conditions about cycle storage, do it, okay, there's no point saying you've got to do it in a certain amount of time because it's already done. But SPA, cycle storage and things of that ilk, are you saying that we should not have that in this case?
Yeah, but fundamentally, we don't think it needs planning permission. Your
Well, yeah, but we disagree with you, as we work on the basis of logic.
So on that basis, it would, if you're applying, in effect, a standard today, then it would be reasonable to require the cycle store be provided. We would then need to put a time limit on doing that, so within 3 months, 6 months.
Okay. Councillor Shah?
Thank you. Actually, I'm a bit confused. We say it doesn't, we agreed we doesn't need planning permission, and then we say actually it's already approved, then we can't add a condition. I didn't understand this.
So I think we've now got to the position that if we want to put conditions on, we can.
I think we need to add that condition, and that is a reasonable condition.
Yeah, I agree. So, David, in terms of, if we were minded to grant planning permission, the conditions that are logical would be produce a cycle store and do it within a 6-month period. Do we need to say about the SPA and any water mitigation, or is that effectively it's already, the development bit of it is already done, therefore that's inappropriate?
I think you're correct there, Chair, because in effect, I don't believe we could substantiate that an additional demand has been created because it's already there.
Councillor Smythe?
And we need to limit it to 7 people.
Yeah.
People, I think. And also there's the timescale one.
So the timescale that's being suggested is 6 months to get the cycle store in, and the rest of it's already done. So limited to 7 people, do a cycle store, get that done in 6 months. Are there any other conditions that we might need, David?
We would still typically add the plans condition, Chair, as well, just to confirm the plans are approved in terms of the layout.
All right. Okay, I'm happy to propose that with those conditions. So any other proposals on the floor? Okay, can I have those in favour of granting planning permission with those conditions? Those against? And those abstaining? Okay, planning permission is granted. Okay, that brings us to the end of our agenda today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much indeed for your attendance today, much appreciated. And we'll see you again soon.